also can be funny what is forgotten. Maybe not funny, maybe tragicomic, interesting, maybe inspiring. What many people don't actually know that when the so-called first 4th of July happened, the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776, for over 9 months, tens of thousands of slaves had been rising up in what would be the largest slave revolt in the history of the so-called United States. 20,000 slaves who went to the British lines to fight against their own slave masters who dared to call themselves patriots. And it wasn't just the 20,000 who fought, but 100,000 all told that removed their labor from the slave holders who claimed to be fighting for freedom, and they picked up the gun and they fought for real freedom. But we don't remember that.
Come on.
And we don't remember that for obvious reasons, because every single positive thing that has happened for black people in America has been a fight.
That's right.
Every single one from the very first day that they started the country. Black people have been asking freedom for whom? And been answering the question too, I guess anybody but us.
That's right.
And the Native Americans.
Right.
You think about the history of, you think about just the what we've seen with the statues and the Confederate flags, you know, just the most basic sense of human decency. That in a so-called democratic society, allegedly where everybody is welcome, that tens of millions of us shouldn't have to live under the shadow of those who raped our ancestors, who murdered them, who committed genocide, who enslaved them, and a battle flag that stood for all of that. You would think that hundreds of years later, that just basic human decency wouldn't be much of an issue, but you gotta fight for it.
That's right.
And not only do you gotta fight for it, but they're arresting people for it.
That's right.
They're arresting people for tearing down statues to genocidal individuals. Think about that one time.
Damn.
But why is it so important to them? Why is July 4th so important? Why is this flag so important? It's because they need to have these myths alive to justify what they do today.
That's right.
Everything in the way that it's pitched is they say, well, you know, America, yeah, some of it was bad, but you know, over time we can get better. We can improve. Things improve. Now we know that in and of itself is a lie. I mean, you look at we talk about 400 years of a war on black America. I mean, not only are we being disproportionately killed, disproportionately jailed, we're disproportionately dying from COVID-19, diabetes, many of the cancers, hypertension, just about everything else you can think of. They're pushing us out of every single major city through gentrification. And from the whole 400 years, we've been Jim Crow, Ku Klux, and police to death into the ground.
Come on.
And this is 400 years after we're supposed to be free. But if you want to do the most heinous crimes on earth, like what they're doing, like co-signing the genocide in Yemen, helping the apartheid situation in Israel, running an occupation military in Africa, starving and killing millions of people in Iran and Venezuela with crippling sanctions, you have to have some sort of myth that allows you to do that. And that is the myth of the American flag. It doesn't stand for freedom and independence. It stands for murder, for rape, and for pillage. But if you pretend that it stands for freedom and independence, you can murder and rape and pillage under a false name. And that's what the American flag is all about. It's a bloody rag. It's a bloody rag when you know what it stands for, when it raises over people in the country. In the Philippines, when the American flag raised, does it stand for freedom? No, it stands for colonialism. In Nicaragua, for colonialism. The Dominican Republic, for colonialism. In China, for colonialism. Why they're waving American flags in Hong Kong and British flags? America wasn't for the freedom of Hong Kong. Britain wasn't for the freedom of Hong Kong. They were for the enslavement of Hong Kong and the enslavement of Chinese people in the Opium War, where they created millions of addicts and stole their money for their own pockets to build these big buildings. It's a bloody rag. It's a bloody rag.
Try doing that in China.
Okay.
Try doing that in
Well,
China.
China actually has the most protests of any country in the world, so just remember that. But the reality is, you got the freedom to be homeless, you got the freedom to be hungry, you got the freedom not to have a job. That's a hell of an amount of freedom that you got in America. You got a freedom to die on the street, but you don't have the freedom to live. So when we say freedom for who? It's not freedom for the oppressed people. It's not freedom for the working classes. It's freedom for the rich. It's freedom for the elites. It's the freedom of the imagination to make you think you got something when you don't have anything at all. So I'll just close today by saying that I saw a beautiful mural that was unveiled midway through last week in Minneapolis. And I'm proud that I was able to be there with Juan and others. A beautiful mural that was unveiled, and it was based off something that his daughter, that George Floyd's daughter, said a couple of days after. People may have seen this, they caught it on the news, and she said, "Daddy changed the world." And the mural is a beautiful mural of George Floyd, and it just says, "Change the world." Quoting her, "Daddy changed the world." And that was powerful to me because this is not something that is beyond us or outside of our hands. It's something that's in our hands. That we have the responsibility to make that true. It's no doubt that the whole world has woken up. Some people already knew. They never went to sleep, but regardless if you were asleep, wake, or whatever, now you know about this war on Black America. Now we can do one of two things. There's a lot of people, and many people have mentioned, they want to paint streets. They want to pass some nonsensical law that doesn't do anything about that. We could go one of two ways. We could go that way, and it could be over tomorrow. And they can have everything they want. The elites, the rich, the police, they have everything they want as soon as they get us out of the streets. Or we can make one simple vow, that we won't stay out of the streets, that we will stay in the streets, that we will make this country ungovernable, that if necessary, we will turn it upside down, because George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, everyone who's ever been killed unjustly by this brutal system deserves it. And it's in our hands to make justice reality for them, to take this system by the neck, to drag it down, to burn it if we have to, just like they took down the slave plantations in the Civil War. That was a destruction. They say destruction of property. That was $1 trillion destruction of property, and it was righteous. Property isn't more important than people. Property isn't more important than humanity. A broken window can be replaced, but life cannot be replaced. It's in our hands. It's in our hands. We have to rise up and continue to fight. So I thank everyone for coming. I'm proud to be here with you. I'm proud to march with you, and I'm proud to be a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation that took the spearhead to put this event on, and I ask you to join with us. It's not our party, it's your party. It's the party for every working class, oppressed person who's been humiliated, stepped on, turned out, told they didn't mean a damn thing, and is angry as hell and wants to stand up and fight about it. That's what we're about. That's what you're